So congratulations to all of you. You should be proud. And I just want to say that on behalf of the 30,000 AMDers worldwide, and particularly 10,000 in India, I just want to congratulate you and thank you for this opportunity to have this discussion. Since we are a small group, I think we'll keep it informal. And I want to make sure that somebody please keep track of time so that I do justice to my colleagues here and the dais. The topic that I've been asked to talk about is sort of building AI readiness from compute to capability. In AI, in the field of AI these days, there seems to be an over-indexing of AI and GPUs, when in reality AI is much broader. GPU is obviously a significant part of the core infrastructure, but what we do at AMD is to really provide a full suite of AI capability, from AI on AI PCs to core infrastructure to all the way out to the edge. And I have my colleague Tim from AMD, so we decided that we're going to tag team, and so I'm going to focus perhaps a little bit on the sovereign side, and then Tim can focus on the enterprise side. That's okay. It's okay with you. So let's just talk about sovereign AI in practice and exploring the motivators. So this particular slide was something that is created by the Department of Energy in the United States as part of a new initiative that was kicked off by the Trump administration called the Genesis mission. And I had a role to play in terms of trying to support and address in crafting this initiative. And the framing is very simple. If you look at the top line, I don't know whether this has a pointer. It's okay. So the top line, the white line, is funding in the United States for R&D. Today, the United States spends about $1 trillion a year in R&D. That's just mind-boggling. Right? Now, not all of that is government spend. It's roughly about, say, 20 to 30% US government and the rest industry. The bottom line is what we consider research output efficiencies. So the problems are getting harder, it is getting more challenging, and even though we are trying to tackle really important problems, the sense is that throwing money is not having the same rate of return. And this slide basically asks the question, how do we reduce the gap? And at least the thesis for the Genesis mission is that you can use AI as a way to accelerate scientific discovery. The Genesis mission has three areas of importance. For people who don't know about US Department of Energy, US Department of Energy is the nation's largest physical science agency. So it operates through 17 national labs. Some of the earliest ones, like the one Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which I used to lead before joining AMD, came to being during the Manhattan Project. And Manhattan Project, about 65% of the entire funding of Manhattan Project was at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And in addition to, in fact, I think the Prime Minister mentioned that about nuclear energy, both the destructive aspect as well as the significant outcomes that came out of that, from nuclear medicine to nuclear navy to nuclear energy. These all came, you can trace back to Manhattan Project. So US Department of Energy is not only responsible for energy, but it's really a science organization. It's got three priorities. One is just discovery science, second is energy, and the third is national security. And national security America has a really interesting a way of keeping the nuclear arsenal away from the military, in the sense that it is the U.S. Department of Energy and not U.S. Department of Defense or Department of War that is responsible for the nuclear arsenal. And the 3 lab directors, Los Alamos, Livermore, and Sandia, has to certify each year that the arsenal is ready for the President of the United States. So this is the thesis. The hypothesis, if you think about research, if you look at the left side, it starts with hypothesis, then you conduct experiments, get the data, and today you take the data, use AI, machine learning, etc., you get analysis. What you're trying to do is to make this much faster so that you can have science outcomes coming out faster, and do it in a reduced cost, because you cannot throw more and more money at this problem, and enhance global collaboration. I think there is a genuine interest on the part of the U.S. that this whole premise is not just a U.S. issue. And so I think that there is likely announcements that suggest that countries like Japan and Europe and UK and others may be part of this overall approach to drive sovereign AI for those aspects of AI deployment and scaling that is uniquely a government or state function. So that is, I mentioned broadly scientific discovery, energy, and national security, but if you look at the scientific discovery further to the next step, then you will see healthcare, education, skilling, all these things that are fundamentally a government function. And this is not an easy task, because if you think about how these institutions' research is done, I mentioned large fraction of it in the private sector. A lot of it is done in academia funded by government. And then, of course, the national labs in the United States. India has its own set of national labs, academia, etc. So what you need to do is to take a look to see how do you integrate all this data. At least the U.S. Department of Energy operates these large multi-billion-dollar light sources and neutron sources, specialized scientific experiments. You need to be able to incorporate all these things. So you have to federate the compute and data. You have to have cloud-enabled lab operations, which is not how things are done today. Security and governance by design, especially when you're thinking about public-private partnerships. Even in the enterprise commercial scale, you want to make sure that you have secure computing, you have confidential computing, you can maintain integrity. But also, if you think about national security, you have additional layer, and then you want composable standards-first infrastructure. So this particular program was kicked off by Secretary Wright, well, the President of the United States, then Secretary Wright, and the fourth quarter of last year. And the first announcement was done with Lisa Su, our CEO, because one of the things that they wanted to do was a unique public-private partnership. And so the core infrastructure, which is currently called American Science Cloud, this program is just being stood up, is going to be run on an MI355 cluster, which is what this entire program that is aimed at driving innovation is going to be run on. And so we are really excited that we are part of this initially US and soon an international effort to drive innovation in those areas that are uniquely government function. I've had a ringside seat in computing for the last 30 years and been responsible for a lot of supercomputing deployment, a dozen or so. The last 4 or 5 of them were #1 systems in the top 500, each first of a kind. This is another important thing. Innovation, if you think about AI didn't happen magically with NVIDIA or AMD. It happened because US government took the risk to invest in first of a kind systems. So we were the first to deploy a 30,000 NVIDIA GPUs when people thought that CUDA was a 4-letter word. Now everybody thinks that this is this amazing software, but change comes hard to people. And so I just want you to know that, particularly all of you who are youngsters, things are going to evolve. If you think that AI is just like the Prime Minister said, it's just in the early stages. So you have to be open and you have to be part of this drive for effective, scalable, and impactful AI. Then deep learning came. We had this mixed precision computation, then generative AI, and last year was really agentic AI. And some of us think that this year we're going to focus increasingly on governance. Governance does not mean regulation. There is a role for regulation by governments, but governance is that how do you want, if you want to have agentic systems driving, accelerating innovation, you want to make sure that input or the output has a person in the loop. The one way to simply think about it is that if you are researchers here, if you have a professor who got a dozen students who are doing research, you don't let the students just go publish things. There is the professor's responsibility, there is the peer review committee, etc. So you want that human in the loop in order before you can update and let this thing to drive innovation, while it also allows it to do things that AI does best. So this is how we think about compute to capability. A model of national AI readiness is it rests on talent. Talent and readiness of talent, giving people access to compute and models. Research enablement is key because you want people to operate AI in an environment where you're questioning things and innovating all the time, as opposed to assuming that what we in the industry is providing you is the only solution, right? So I think if you look at countries that are leading in AI, there is a very strong R&D and innovation foundation that is allowing you to lead, because there are people who are questioning every time somebody says something to make sure that it is validated, it's continuing to innovate. Startup and innovation layer, because you want to take these ideas and start new companies, because many of these new innovation and new technologies may be led by people with new ideas and opportunities, and of course, ultimately enterprise and public sector adoption. We strongly believe, and again, I heard Prime Minister Modi say, open ecosystem and open source, open platforms. These things, if you think about iOS and Android, India, I find, has a lot of penetration of Android systems, because inherently open systems allows you to innovate without getting locked into vendors. And so we, as AMD, has a commitment to make both our hardware infrastructure and our software infrastructure to be based on open standards, so that you can innovate around this thing. Any part of this infrastructure can be part of a new startup or new company adding to that. That is also an important way for India to become part of the supply chain and the semiconductor ecosystem, because you don't have to start with an attempt to going for 2 or 3 nanometer. You can actually do amazing work and be part of leading edge technology at different form factors. So I mentioned a little bit about how we think about agentic flows and AIs can work. This is simply the way you think about it. The inner loop is an autonomous loop where AI and agentic AI does things what it can do fast. It can operate. If you have 100,000 GPUs, you have 100,000 agents tackling this problem and doing it can actually go through the hypothesis-driven experiments and simulation, campaign scale coordination, machine speed execution, etc. But we do not allow it to update the outcome until a human in the loop has had the opportunity to validate, to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences. Now, how do you build this thing? So this is, if you haven't gone to the AMD booth, I would encourage you to do. This is my only plug in this presentation. We spent a ton of money to bring this Helios rack here, just so that you can have a sense of not what this particular rack can do, but giving you a glimpse of what is possible the next year and the year after. So in 2007, myself and 2 of my colleagues started what is called the Exascale program. And the challenge was to deliver an exascale system for under 20 megawatts. Because if you had just scaled the capability in 2007, it would have taken 3 to 4 gigawatts. And we knew that the government was not going to sign $4 billion for power, just electricity alone, to run that computer. So we were motivated to drive that. And we delivered that first exascale system called Frontier at Oak Ridge for less than 20 megawatts. Okay. Everybody thought it was crazy, it cannot be done. But there are some things where you know, when you put audacious goals, people rally around and then deliver. This particular rack, in one rack, there are 72 GPUs that will deliver 2.9 exaflops of AI compute, which is FP4, not FP64, just to be very clear. But for AI capability, you get 2.9 exaflops of compute capability for 220 kilowatts, right? That, even for somebody who's been in this field for a long time, is just mind-blowing. This is where we are headed. I mean, this is AI is the fastest adoption of any technology that humanity has introduced. We've gone from 1 million active users to 1 billion in a matter of just a couple of years, and we are headed to 5 billion users. So there is a lot of opportunity to innovate in this field, and all of us are going to continue to create these opportunities. As Lisa said, we are entering the Yara scale. So already people are thinking about the next 1,000, right? So let me just say, you can get to zettascale by just taking 300 of those racks and putting together, and then it's another 3x. So I would say in the next 10 years, maybe, we would be at this 10,000 factor. So the kind of problems that you're thinking about should not be constrained by what you can do today. By the time you figure out the solution for an important problem, compute will be there. That is what we in the industry like to promise you. And I think advancing national economies, these are one of the things that, you know, people might, you would be forgiven if you thought that, you know, does AMD do these things and how prevalent are our compute capabilities? I think Tim is going to tell you that our GPUs and our systems are in every hyperscaler globally. And when it comes to HPC and national priority missions, AMD is bar none the leader. If you listen to President Macron, he referenced Alice Ricoh, which is the first AI factory that the French government announced, the CEA announced, which is based on AMD MI430X, which is a variant of the MI450 out on the rack that you see outside. So I will close by saying that a shared path forward is really what we are looking for. I know India is in the early stages, and we are really delighted to actually have this conversation. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite our next speaker, Shri Paneerselvam, CEO of the MeitY Startup Hub at Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. Dr. Paneerselvam is a distinguished leader with over 2 decades of expertise in innovation, management, strategic growth, and market development. He's been instrumental in advancing India's startup ecosystem and fostering impactful partnerships between the government, industry, and entrepreneurs. In his prior roles, Dr. Madan Gopal served as Senior Advisor and Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer at T-Hub and has had experience in consulting and education. Dr. Paneerselvam.
Thank you, and a very warm good morning to all of you. And I'm so glad to be here amongst you, and especially among some of the very distinguished speakers and tech leaders from AMD. Thank you, AMD, for this opportunity for having me this morning. Seated between two technology leaders, I'm not even going to attempt to talk much about technology, and I'll try and share a little bit perspective on the topic about how do you really build this AI readiness from a business perspective, as well as, of course, technology is a very integral part of it, but let me attempt to build some context in how do you really build the business readiness for adopting AI, especially in the Indian context, because this is very important to not just to adopt technology, but also change the mindset to work with this particular kind of technology, which is very different from some of these things that we have seen in the past. It's not a software that you can buy off the shelf and implement it. This is something very different, and AI and generative AI is changing the way businesses operate. In fact, let me quickly understand the composition of the room. I mean, how many startup founders, how many enterprise corporates, and startup founders? Wonderful. Corporates working in large enterprises? Wonderful. And innovators, researchers? Wonderful. Great. So it's in fact, one of Thomas's slide validated. This is an interesting technology that seemed to have been gone really really viral, or really adoption is so fast in the D2C space, direct to consumer space, and the enterprises are still catching up. If I may, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's a lot of SMBs and large enterprises. I mean, large enterprises may be working on it, building, but SMBs definitely, and in India we call them micro, small and medium enterprises. They are still figuring out what it is, and still. So it's a very interesting. Unlike in the past, where most softwares are earlier adopted by the enterprises, and then it later percolated into the individual usage as well. So this is the first change that I've been seeing, and it's very, very powerful that way. Having said that, one of the most critical, I mean, coming to the topic about AI readiness, compute to capability, but I'll also add one more C to it, which is change management. I think the fundamental need for businesses, especially SMBs, small and medium businesses, and for startups, this is an opportunity, because you are almost an AI native coming into this market. But legacy businesses, especially in India, where SMBs are largely proprietor driven, family businesses, family driven, it's going to be a very important understanding of the technology. But it's more important to understand change and change management in this context, because here you're not really buying something off the shelf, but you need to now change your fundamental way of your business operates and your business workflows. Some of the processes can be redundant. There could be new processes, new steps coming into your workflow, and some of them could be human driven, and most of them could be agent driven. Right, so this is an opportunity for most SMBs, or in terms of readiness, is to understand how ready are you to accept change and be ready for the change management, and to kind of adopt AI into that business. I think that's fundamentally the most important thing. We were discussing what could be the barriers of change. Of course, there is understanding of the technology, there is the investment part into it, and then there is the talent capability that needs to be invested in, and last but not least, it's also about what is the return on investment is going to be. Right, some of these things are be looking at, but I'm an optimist, and I always say small and medium enterprises, or SMBs, or business owners are extremely. We should never underestimate their business acumen, and if you show value to them, they will buy. I'm not just talking about SMEs in Delhi or in Bombay or enterprises in large cities, but if you look at beyond these cities, there are in Coimbatore or in Meerut or in Bhubaneswar, there are businesses that are contributing to the growth of India by operating or manufacturing and developing products and services. If you show them value in this, but in the technology, in the adoption of AI, they will eventually end up buying into it and kind of changing it. But the truth is, who is going to demonstrate this change to them, and who is going to demonstrate this value, and how is it going to happen is something, a business opportunity for the startups themselves, right? If AI readiness quotient could be a starting point, because what you don't measure, you don't manage. So if you really want to build this model of AI readiness quotient, and then slowly integrate and unlearn the existing processes, and there could be a huge opportunity around building this business, and some of it could be just a turnkey project, build, operate, and transfer to the small businesses owners and stuff. So it's important to understand the change part of it. It's critical to understand the change in workflow and business processes, and most importantly, it is important to facilitate this change and readiness for the SMBs with some sort of, and people who have done it in the past, people who have proven capabilities, because that's something equally important. It's not easy to find that set of talent pool, so that's important, because it's one of the need for readiness is also a very strong set of advisory consultants or support system that can come and guide and implement and execute and implement the entire readiness for you. I think that's something which is very, very critical. Having said that, if you how many of you, I always draw the parallel with the CRMs, right? Large enterprises buy CRMs, medium enterprises do. How much do you think is an average utilization of a CRM in these companies would be? Negligent. Yeah. I think in India it's around 28% of the entire CRM suite is used in a very effective manner. Maybe it is much better in the Western world, but the truth is, what I'm trying to share, it's not technology for technology's sake, but it is important to understand how this technology is going to be leveraged in the business, and that is something which is going to be a very, very critical factor in the implementation, adoption of AI, and businesses becoming ready for AI adoption is also very, very critical. So, and in fact, in some of the, if you look at the medium enterprises, I'm not talking about large because they completely understand what this is going to do to their businesses. If you look at the SMB space, which is very large space in India, for them it's important to kind of drive this point that we need to ensure that they understand how this is going to transform their business, and this is going to transform their capabilities. So, by and large, there are huge opportunities in the SMB businesses for transforming themselves through AI. Then comes, first is the intent, which is very, very important. Then comes the investment, because it's going to cost them not just money, but change in terms of the talent capability, change in terms of the reporting structures, change in terms of the business supply chain management. Everything is going to go through a very significant, and that requires investment in terms of. So the first I is what I call intent, second is investment, and third is implementation, because the most important aspect is also driving implementation support is very, very critical. So we have, this could by itself is a business opportunity for a lot of startups and consulting companies, because it's going to be such a transformative technology that is going to drive this. So largely, if you look at net, I think the primary thing that we need to look at is how do we really, everybody understands the need for AI, but how does it really work for my business? How does it really going to transform and change my medium enterprise, and how much is going to really add value to the way we are doing things is something that we need to be clearly demonstrated, and that is where we do it. I think the rest will follow because once you understand the business need of it, then the compute capability, and then the data layer followed by the what I call intelligence or a layer, and then it's going to be the interface, because that's where the other layers come in, because data, intelligence and interface, each of them are going to play a very, very critical role, and that's something that they will figure out, because for each businesses this is going to be very different, right? Because data alignment is also not easy, because in India the data exists in different forms and different structures, in silos. Even in large enterprises, one data set doesn't talk to another. One department data doesn't, is able to talk to another. So synthesizing this is going to be a very, very important part to your readiness. Then comes the intelligence layer, which is synthesizing and making sense out of this data, making insights out of drawing insights out of this data, and then comes the interface layer, where most of it is going to be really driven by agents, by agentic AI, and of course, as Thomas mentioned, there is always going to be a human in the loop perspective, but as we progress, this is going to change as well. So the two fundamental things that I want to share. One is the entire transformation in the readiness space for AI is an opportunity for certain change, and intent needs to be very, very clear. And then comes the curiosity to learn about this a little bit more for each business owner, and then comes the implementation part of it. And then startups have a very, very critical role to facilitate this, because you are coming in almost as AI natives with an understanding of this, and you can really go out and demonstrate value and help implement the entire readiness, improve the readiness quotient for small and medium enterprises, and ensure that this is a broad-based growth opportunity for businesses across the country, and not limited to just a few of them, right? So there is huge potential, and I think enough has been spoken. The summit itself is a proof of the kind of curiosity. We have had 267,000 registrations, people who have registered for in the last 5 days. Unexpected, overwhelming response to some extent that we couldn't really handle it, right? At the same time, it gives us immense pride and excitement for the amount of curiosity and the youngsters in India, across India, who have traveled here from the length and breadth of country to understand what is AI going to be, and how this is going to impact, and what the opportunities are. And that itself is a fantastic starting point. And as I said, there's a lot of happened. This is in Indian sovereign models coming, the 5 layers, the infrastructure, the design, all the layers are being worked upon in the Indian context. And we are ready as a nation, we are ready as a government to facilitate this real disruptive, transformative technology. But the truth is, it's also important it has to percolate into all the layers of the society, be it it should not just limit itself to large corporates, but also to small and medium enterprises. And of course, it has already percolated well into the D2C, to the individual users, and it's much beyond the chat GPTs of the world, right? So with that, I think I once again take the opportunity to thank the entire team from AMD, and we have had some interesting conversation, and I look forward for the continued partnership with AMD and MeitY Startup Hub, because in our perspective, corporates have a huge role to play in the success of the startups. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you.
Right, okay, 15 minutes, good. I thought I had 30. So, strap in, this is going to go quick. Okay, so thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you very much, Doctor. I'm sorry, it's not on the screen anymore, but that's a fantastic introduction. a lot of the way of why we need the compute and how it's going to be put into India. There's a couple of things that I want you guys to think about as I go through my talk. 30th of November 2022, the world changed. ChatGPT was launched. And I'm willing to bet that everyone in this room, myself included, what we thought we knew about AI changed. 2 years ago, what we thought, even after ChatGPT, changed. A year ago, what we thought changed. And what I'm hoping is as you leave here, other things would have changed in the last 45 minutes of listening to these talks. Okay, so I'm going to skip through the reason why we need to go through and need compute. But I think one thing that is very, very, very important is things are moving so fast, and things are moving in a way that we cannot predict, that the only way that anybody is going to be successful is an open ecosystem. And that, you know, both of the esteemed gentlemen before me have alluded to this as well. And I'm going to take you through specifically around software. I mean, everything to do with AI really, I'm a hardware guy, I used to design chips, but everything today is software, right? And I was talking to one of my colleagues and I said, okay, so I'm going to India, and I'm going to do all this, and we're going to go through. And I said, is it really going to be the, you know, are they going to understand it? And he said, Tim, India is software. This is what we do. He said, you're going to be in front of the best people in the world that are going to understand what you want to talk about. So I'm really going to focus on the software side of that. And one of the things that I wanted to do, understanding that we had our esteemed colleague from Mighty here, is we do have lots and lots of experience in this space. And one of the things that I want to highlight is some work that we did with Lumi in Finland. Now, why is this important? So within Europe, almost all the languages are Indo-European, right? If you know a little bit Greek, if you know a little bit of Latin, if you know a little bit of one of the languages, there's 27 countries in Europe, so let's call it 27 languages. And then you have Finland. Finland is a Uralic language. Nothing to do with any other language in Europe. Absolutely different construct, different base, different absolutely everything. And so what we found working with the guys in Finland is they were coming to us because they put in this Lumi supercomputer, and they said, okay, so we have a small country in Europe, 5 million native speakers, and we have to take all of this work that's been done, you know, English, big codex, Spanish, big codex, Hindi, English, big codex of all of that to do your training. Suddenly you have a language of 5 million people. How do you get that language into your LLM model so that it becomes useful? Now, I'm probably going to get the pronunciation really, really wrong here, okay? But I did actually use ChatGPT to look at the 22 Indian languages, right? So if we look at Bodo, Konkani, Dogri, Sindhi, Nepali, there's less than 5 million people that speak those languages. So how do you get an Indian LLM that caters for everybody in India? As we've seen from President Modi, AI for all of that kind of thing. And this is the kind of area that with Mighty, this is where we would like to work with you guys and be able to bring some benefit of the work that we've been able to do. Now remember the first date, 30th of November 2022. This machine was inaugurated. So it was put together, all of the systems were put together, it was all brought up, the chips were made years before. This machine was inaugurated, my birthday, 13th of June 2022, 6 months before ChatGPT came out. So this machine with 12,000 GPUs that had the foresight from the Finnish government was using AMD technology to run AI before ChatGPT came out. So a lot of people that think that a lot of the stuff from AI has come from a specific area. This again, let's think of our way of thinking. We were there and we have the ability. We actually did the Bloom 176 billion parameter model. It was an open model made for European languages. So again, we would love to bring this knowledge and use with the Indian ecosystem to make this successful for everybody. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on hyperscalers. They're obviously an important part of the market. It's where a lot of the capabilities go into. we're there. We have tens of thousands of GPUs. We actually have, as Thomas mentioned, we have the Helios system coming here. Please go and take a look at it. It's, if you like hardware, it's an interesting piece of kit. But really the idea here is whether you're in a hyperscaler or whether you're in any other area, you know, there is an ability to have a wider ecosystem. And again, inference, so AMD specifically, it's not really an AMD pitch, but there was an idea in the market that AMD was inference only. That dates from Q1 2024. That's 2 years old. So again, we have to kind of change that thinking, right? That's older thinking. We actually now, again, completely open source. There's a Primus ecosystem or a Primus tool, fully open source, which enables you to be able to do all of the training that you need to do for all of your Indic languages or for your use cases, which again is completely open. Enterprise AI, this one I think is an interesting one. I know when I started going out to customers and going out to enterprise customers, the difference in customer knowledge on what AI was amazing, right? You go into one customer and they say, okay, so this is our use case and we're seeing these kinds of sizes of matrices, so we're doing these optimizations. And then you go into another customer and you say, what are you doing around AI? And the guy goes, oh yeah, we're doing Gen AI. Okay, great, yeah, what are you doing with Gen AI? We're using LLMs. Okay, great, so using LLMs, what are you thinking with LLMs? And they had no idea, right? It's just, we have to do something with AI. And that has changed over the last 18 months. And you know, chatbot was something that most people said, okay, that makes sense. I understand chatbot. We can fine tune the model. We can do an internal AI assistant within the company. And now we're starting to see with the agentic workflows this entire plethora of different use cases coming through. And so how then do you take it from a research institute or people that actually get onto your accelerator, whether that's a GPU or a TPU or an FPGA or whatever else, and get it to a stage where actually people within a corporation can use it? And so this is something that, you know, has been understood. And again, no lock-in, open, everything here is something that can be used without having to tie you into one particular area. And actually, you know, I'll come on to it a little bit later as well. It's also something that I've been very impressed with the infrastructure that MITRE have put into place. With the public-private partnership, you have GPUs, you have TPUs, you have Inferentia, and you have all of the different types of accelerators available to you within the Indian ecosystem that MITRE have made available to you. I'll come on to that a little bit later more, but again, the idea here is that whatever the ecosystem is, or whatever the compute that you're using, you're able to go from an area where, whether it's in the cloud or whether it's an on-prem, you have an ability to be able to give your employees within your enterprise an ability to be able to use that AI assistant or tool. Neo clouds, so these are the kind of what we call the smaller clouds. You know, they're not the hyperscalers, they're a little bit more nimble. They are a little bit more available to doing things a little bit different. A lot of these guys are doing sort of bare metal and managed Kubernetes services, but it is coming to areas where they're becoming like APIs, token factories. There's an ability for these guys to be able to provide you with compute quickly, easily, and at reasonable pricing to enable you in whatever it is you're trying to do. We find these are the first movers in the market, and again, in the same way that we're integrated and working with the hyperscalers, we have these relationships with the neoclouds, and actually we're working with quite a few of the guys here in India as well to make that available for you as well. So the whole idea again here is there is that compute that's available. Please go out and understand the benefits or the trade-offs between the different types of compute that you have out there and get the right solution for you guys. Now, I'm assuming that most people here are going to be startups. And again, startup is an interesting area, right? So you have a startup, you know what you want to do, you absolutely are laser focused on getting your MVP out there, getting in front of customers. How do you generate some value? How do you generate some revenue? Although that these days is less and less important, it seems, as people get funding even sometimes before a product. But one of the things that you guys have to be sure of is that the compute that you have and the capabilities that you have are capable for the products that you actually have to then go and put into position. And so this is an area where we understand that proof of concept, it's very important. And again, I was chatting with the CEO of Mighty here before. It's something he was saying, you know, POC to PO. You know, you have to be able to make sure that you understand the technology and how you can take that to market before you can actually go and invest in it. So we have a couple of different ways that we can help here within the ecosystem. You could actually go on there right now. There's the AMD Developer Cloud. You can get, I think it's 50 or 100 hours of free compute. You want to go on, how does AMD work? You know, it's always going to be dependent on use case and what you're trying to do, but there is a huge TCO advantage, which of course is important for startups. Get onto the dev cloud, get it working. We actually provide Docker containers, so that's everything put into a single Docker, so you can download a Docker and run it, so that you don't have to spend your time and your energy installing all of the software, putting everything together, get everything working. We've done all of that for you. Take the Docker down. Get your model off of Hugging Face. Get your weights off of Hugging Face. Use your own model and do something else. Whatever there is that's in there, in the open source ecosystem is there and it's going to work. Give it a go. Give it a play. And then, of course, from that, we can take you into our accelerator cloud, a little bit more sort of hands-on, making sure we understand what you're doing, helping, guiding, and assisting you and moving yourself forward there. And then, of course, we have the relationships in with the industry, you know, try and buys, being able to get you access to the compute, and being able to get you the right solution at the right kind of price. So this is something also that I really want to highlight. So day zero support of models. Now we announced this. So Qwen 3 Codex came out last week, day zero support on AMD. Baidu came out with one of their paddle models this week, day zero support on AMD. What does day zero support mean? Well, it means that it's not the first time we've seen this code. It runs on AMD, it's guaranteed, it's optimized. You know, a lot of people think that to run something in AI, you need a specific GPU. The whole point is with day zero support, that's absolutely false, right? Again, with Lumi, pre-ChatGPT in 2022, we were building LLMs for effectively Indic type languages, right? So the ability is there. If there's a new model coming out, you want to run it, you want to test it, you want to see how it works for you guys, then that is there and runs out of the box. And you know, again, if we look at this line in the middle, you know, PyTorch, if you look at the history of PyTorch, you know, there were lots of signatories on PyTorch to make sure that that was available for everybody. AMD was one of them. This mainly comes out of Microsoft and Meta, who did not want to be closed in to a single supplier. So actually what you're doing with PyTorch is you're writing Python code, right? You're not writing vendor-specific code. It's an open ecosystem. That's the whole point, right? You don't want to be tied in. You know, it's going to stifle innovation. It's going to increase costs. So PyTorch came out, and that is the basis of 99% of all of the customers I talk to, right? They're all writing Python under PyTorch. JAX is then coming forward. Triton, this is a Python-like language, which is specific for gem optimization. Again, if you're getting to that area where you're actually seeing the gem sizes that are coming through from your operations and want to do gem level operations, then Triton enables you to do that at the compiler level. So then you really don't even need, you can be completely agnostic of what the underlying hardware is. The ecosystem and the underlying compute becomes kind of abstracted away because Triton enables you to run on anybody. It's just a compile for the new architecture. If we look at these models on the bottom here, you know, President Modi this week has announced sort of the first sort of 12 Indian languages. I can't wait to get you guys here, right? Fully supported, day zero support. You know, just to give you an example here, DeepSeek, of course, when DeepSeek came out, they did some things a little bit special. You know, the multi-head latent attention was new. We had day zero support with DeepSeek. Why? Because we're one of the main contributors to SG9. There's not a tie-in to an inference engine here. It's an open ecosystem. So we were able to come out of the door with better TCO, better performance, better cost, and full support through SG9 on that DeepSeek model, which was, you know, the leader of its time because of our complete commitment to the open ecosystem. Just to give you again, you're walking out of here in 45 minutes with changed ideas. This is what we're going for here. I did have 2 minutes, I now have 5. I don't know who bought me extra time, but I owe you a beer. Okay, so really actually that's kind of the end of the pitch here. One thing I would say is we do have a booth here, 5 to 10. I'm sorry, I'm going to do a little bit of an AMD plug at the end here, but do come by, see us. We actually have, we have some of the NeoClouds there. We have some model creators, vendors, some ecosystem partners there. Come see, come change your mind. Come see what's available within an ecosystem with the compute that's available for you guys. Okay, thank you.
So since somehow in India we managed to create time, so I want to introduce my colleague who's going to actually talk about physical AI, robotics.
Yep.
So I'll let you go.
So,
Introduce yourself.
so first of all, I'm Gilles Garcia. I'm French, so we can talk about LLMs for French language if you want. But so I'm French. I'm based in France, but I'm covering worldwide, and I'm focusing on physical AI for the communications and robotics and industrial. So we have been talking a lot about AI, and most of the people are thinking AI means GPUs, big cloud. And what we are seeing is a big shift. That's another change that we are seeing, change management. So I'm the change management first, but changing is we are seeing the AI moving into the edge and moving into the far edge, which is industrial, robotics, vehicles, as well as the networks. And so for that, you need to have different type of beast. GPUs is one aspect of it, but you need to have very profound different technology that AMD has as part of the broad portfolio that we have. These technologies need to be able to sense, perceive, act, react in a so quick manner that there is no time to go back to the cloud for that. And so these technology need to be, of course, that will be inference, but need to be able to take decisions and act very safely, reliable, without having to rely on the cloud. And so that's a new change that we are seeing at AMD on the physical AI, which will become very, very important for us, is how do we take what we have learned in the cloud and how do we make it available in the physical AI? Software is a big thing. Full stack, meaning hardware and software being able to deliver to the customers solutions is what AMD is aiming for. And so our CEO, Lisa Su, was saying, it's AI anywhere. And one size does not fit all. Meaning that if you want to address a robot, you cannot put a GPU into it. It will burn to hell. So you need to have a very dedicated accelerator with the right software stack, open source, that will be able to have this robot perceiving, visualize, act, touch, and being able to act accordingly to what his purpose will be. At CES early January, Lisa Su bring on stage Gene 01, which was the first humanoid built on AMD technology, and that's just impressive. Everything has been done by a startup in Italy to make this humanoid being able to sense, visualize, touch when somebody is touching in and when is touching something, to act and react very rapidly without having to rely on the centralized source. So I will not be longer than that. Is physical AI is probably something that India, by the way, will have a lot of things to act into. Because GPUs are there already, where physical AI is something that you will have to create. A lot of things related to medical, related to autonomous networks, autonomous cars, autonomous plants, industrial, and that's where I think India will start with all the startups and capability to use accelerators that are much smaller than what GPU are, and this is all available today in the AMD portfolio. So I will stop here, encourage you to come to the AMD booth, and we can continue the discussion. Thank you.
Well, so we gave you a lot of information on AI, gave you 4 different accents. I think the French guy probably carries the day. But my one message is that stay curious. As all of us have said, things are going to change and continue to change at a rapid pace. And people talk about so many thousands of GPUs. That will not be the metric, because you will find that there's a whole lot of interest in trying to provide you with even more powerful GPUs for core infrastructure, while at the same time provide you very lightweight, low power at the edge. And so I think stay curious, look from a startup community point of view, for a research point of view, for academic point of view, look for really interesting problems, challenge us to deliver infrastructure that you need, because ultimately it is the applications where it is going to change society at large. That's the opportunity. So thank you very much.
Now.